We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. Richard Johnson here speaking. One of them is Alex Kirshner. The other one is Stephen Godfrey.
Before we went on the air, Alex said that we had to introduce ourselves by name before we spoke because we have new listeners. And Richard said that's some 60-minute shit, and I haven't been able to stop. I'm gonna introduce myself as Leslie Stahl for the rest of the week. It's not that funny. It's just journalism dork shit.
So all right, Nebraska. It's been open for 3 days, 72 hours. There is not a current sitting permanent head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Stephen Godfrey reported on One Nation podcast that Urban Meyer was coming off the shelf.
Yeah, baby. We got to be clear about these memes because
this
shit's going to bleed
let's
in.
Be clear. No, let's be clear about this, though, because we did on our Patreon show about the Nebraska job, splitsonduo.com.
Yes.
You explained something that I think is likely to be real, which is,
yes.
So obviously it would be insane if Nebraska hired Urban Meyer. They're not going to.
Yeah.
It would be a horrendous idea. Someone would be hospitalized, probably both the athletic director and Urban Meyer. But explain why you see this as something that might get at least media legs over the next few months.
I did explain it, and it's at splitzoneduo.com. And if you're a patron, you've already listened to it. Not to be too cruel and put things behind the wall, but we went in depth as to how that starts as a joke amongst myself and someone in the industry 2 weeks ago now, and then how I believe it could not have legs as it relates to Lincoln, but just in general. So for a detailed explanation, go over to splitzoneduo.com and become a patron today. Listen to the whole show. For the sake of conversation today, pull it away from Urban Meyer and just look at the character traits, right? Everything that you know about the man, and then the way his career has, quote unquote, big old finger quotes here on a podcast. You ready? Visual medium. His career has ended. Think about the kiss-ass choir he still commands within college football media. This dude is not done. Anybody else, and if you took, and by the way, everybody who's recoiling in horror, if you blind itemed his resume right now, many schools would sign up.
There's it's fucking Urban Meyer. You know what I mean? I think that people see and know what happened last year at Jacksonville. Lord knows I do. And say, well, that was a disaster, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't, what he did or didn't do in the NFL does not really matter to a person who was trying, you can explain that shit away very easily.
We're going to be having this conversation about Matt Rule in a year.
Might be sooner than that.
I mean, when Matt Rule is the head coach of a program in a year, a program, because it won't be the Carolina Panthers program. We're going to be having this conversation about how, look, if you're new here, that's fine. Every comic book is someone's first read. That's why Stan Lee introduced himself on every front page. You may not remember the fact that Steve Spurrier had, boys, we're calling that the South Carolina run successful, correct? That was successful by any measure, right? Yeah.
Of course.
After tanking as Washington's, the Washington NFL, the Commanders head coach, right? Tanking. Need I point you to Nicholas Saban and the Miami Dolphins, right? This is a well-worn path.
And I don't want to go too down the road on it. I don't, to be honest here, I do not dismiss this out of hand as much as you guys do. I'm not reporting. That is not reporting. That is me. That is my general posture in a expect anything kind of coaching world that we live in.
Yes.
What I will do, let's say this happens. What I will do is point people back to what he said in Jacksonville about the tail end at Ohio State, and what he said in Jacksonville about the coach he is now and the coach he was at the tail end of Ohio State.
And what was that?
That coach
Paraphrase.
is different than the coach who won 2 national championships at Florida and was megalomaniac in the beginning of Ohio State, won a national championship at Ohio State, had an undefeated season. He is not that coach anymore. And if you hire him expecting that, 2012 Ohio State, 2014 Ohio State, 2008 Florida, he's not that guy. Moving on. Fellas, time waits for no man. Time is a flat circle and a social construct. But you blink and you're a sixth of the way through the college football season.
What?
You blink in like 5 days and you're a fourth of the way through the college football season. Shit happens. Look, eventually we got to talk about the games. We got to talk about the teams. I would love to wait to give context 3, 4, 5, 6 games into the season, but we can't do that. There's a content beast that needs to be fed. There are patrons that need to be satiated. There are podcasts that need to be done. And so here we are. Let's talk narratives. 2 games into the season for most teams, some 3 if you played week 0. With the understanding that some of these narratives can and will be blown up. You will note Virginia Tech was 2-0 at such a point last season.
Mm-hmm.
You will note that Utah started the season 0-2 last season. We know how both of those stories ended. We're not Nostradamus here. We don't have a crystal ball, but we can pretend to do so.
And we can talk about what we're afraid of, like the narratives to beware of.
Yes. So let's talk narratives. Let's talk where we're going here, or where we think things are headed here. Just 2 weeks in for most teams. Alex, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first, and we're going to use this as a way to kind of fan out, over a decent segment of the sport here. Narrative one that I would beware of after 2 weeks of the season is the concept of an Alabama down year based on how sluggish they looked against Texas on Saturday. And I mean that in a couple of ways. They were in double-digit penalties in this game, over 100 penalty yards, something that they almost never do under Nick Saban and probably will not replicate this season, if for no other reason than God bless the official who is willing to risk their own safety and call that many penalties on Alabama again in the next couple of weeks, because you just don't know what Nick will do. But also, and I think maybe more pressingly, since the end of last season, since John Mechie and Jamison Williams both got hurt, and then Bama's receivers just really didn't come up big in the second half of the national title game, we've been wondering if Bama just does not have the guys at wideout that they have had at least 1 or 2 a year for almost every year of the Saban tenure. And I think right now they don't, and it hurt them in Texas because, like, who was their most trusty receiver in that game? It was Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Who's not a receiver. Haven't really seen yet Jermaine Burton or Kobe Prentice or Trayshawn Holden or Ja'Cory Brooks or any of the others on this roster really like emerge as the latest capital D dude at Bama wide receiver. I'm guessing that one of them is going to in the next couple of weeks. I'm guessing.
Remember, a thing to remember, JoJo Earl is still on the shelf. He's hurt.
Yep.
I think he's supposed to be back October 1st or right around the time of the A&M game. Nick Saban, in air quotes, told you this was going to be an issue. They tipped their hand that this was going to be an issue because they added like 4 transfer wide receivers. Like, they knew this was going to be a bugaboo for them. I thought they were going to run the ball their way around this. I thought that they were going to get back to business the way it's supposed to be done at Alabama, to the extent that you can in a post-RPO era, run the ball a little bit more, all that kind of stuff.
These were your jokes in the offseason about 2012 Bama coming back?
Yeah, to the extent that it can. It has not.
Mm-mm.
They were not able to run the ball at will. They had a very nice touchdown run, Jace McClellan had. But for the most part, they struggled against Texas's defensive line. And to Texas's credit, as we gave them on Sunday morning, Texas's defensive line played great. I think that is a thing that has carried over from last season. Alabama's offensive line issues.
Or Bo Davis yelling on a bus in the dark. It works.
The other thing that's carried over a little bit is that both
things can be true.
Their cornerbacks in this game, and this was somewhat of an issue last year as well. Their cornerbacks were kind of had by Xavier Worthy and the Texas wide receivers. And if Ewers had stayed in the game and Worthy had caught the one long one from him that was on his hands, there's a decent chance that Bama would have lost that game. Their safety, DeMarco Helms, I remember covering DeMarco when he was at DeMatha in Hyattsville, Maryland, just down the road from me when he was in high school. He has developed into an incredible player for Alabama over a long college career, and he got hurt for a little bit in the Texas game too. They've got a few things to work out, but I think the reason why I wanted to talk about this is, and you tell me if I'm strawmanning this, because I might be, but I sense like a little bit of discourse about Alabama on Saturday that was like, oh, damn, these guys are pretty far behind Georgia this year, yada, yada. Like, this is a down Bama year. And we all understand that a down Bama year just means 11-1, maybe 10-2, and they don't win a title. That's what a down Bama year is.
Fuck that, because a down Bama year can mean a national championship game where you're driving to objectively potentially tie the game.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm not even sure
Bama years when you lose 3, according to Richard.
I'm not even sure that this is going to be
so
that.
mad.
It's
I'm
never-
going to be so
if
mad
it happens this year.
if this is the year they shit the bed and lose 3 games.
I'm gonna love it.
I'm going to be so pissed.
Love it.
What if let me put this to you guys right now.
Yes.
And I just want you to hear me out on this.
Yes.
Never wrong, just
What
early,
if-
baby.
What if the toughest game on Alabama's schedule for the rest of this year, before they play Georgia, is at Neyland Stadium on October 15th?
No,
I'm not fucking doing this again. I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this.
Just because they beat Pitt, come on.
I think at the end of the day, what saved them that game? Bryce Young. And Bryce
Yes.
Young has, like, you could sit here and say you can't put it all on Bryce Young, but apparently you can, because they have done this time and time again since Bryce Young has taken over as a starter. He has just figured shit out every time. He was 15 and 19 in the fourth quarter of that game. I know that he is 0 of 6 throwing, I believe it's over 15 air yards this season. He's 0 of 6 with those type of passes. They do not have a deep out. Jameson Williams don't grow on trees for a lot of people. They do grow on trees for Alabama, and they don't have one.
Am I onto something by looking backwards? Because it was almost a year to the day from this Bama game, from this Texas game, that Bama just sort of escapes, right? Texas, we could call it. And then
Florida. Yeah.
No, that they escaped Texas last week. Last year, a year to go this week, they escaped Dan Mullen's vaunted Florida Gators team. That was a year ago. It's amazing what falls out of the collective memory. Then I went back and I looked, and in week 3 of the COVID season that was later in October because the SEC got started at the end of September. But again, about the same range of that season, even with all the weird exceptions and asterisks in that season. They only led a really, really bad Ole Miss team by 7 in the fourth quarter, and they were going shot for shot, play for play. That was even more so than the Clemson title game. I would say maybe the highest register on the meter of like, we got to fire Pete Golding. So my point is this: they have these games now with some consistency within the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Basing anything long term on these games seems to be a fool's errand.
Well, the problem was last year that continued to carry, right? The LSU game happened. Obviously, the A&M game happened.
Right.
The Iron Bowl was what the Iron Bowl was. Right? It was a prolonged thing over the course of last season. Time will tell whether it will be this year. But Alex wants you to be aware.
I guess what I'm asking is, but the context, it is still, we're talking about an Alabama, not depression. I don't know. It's like yes, the market is in decline, but it's still a bull market, right? Like orders of magnitude and context here are so important.
Never wrong, just early. Narrative 2. My narrative 2. What if DJ Uiagalelei is the best they got
For the Clemson Tigers.
I just want to start. I just want to clarify this because I think I might agree with Richard. Are you couching this just in terms of right now? In other words, if you made the switch and you played the next 4 games right now, it's the best they've got.
So they get Louisiana Tech this week, then they get Wake and NC State,
Right.
in successive weeks. So on Saturday, Cade Club, when they played Furman, Clemson played Furman on Saturday. They did what Clemson was supposed to do with Furman in the first half. Then they basically didn't move the ball in the second half, by the way. Just to note. They put Cade Klubnik in the first half of that game with the ones to give him a series. The game was already in hand when they did that, but they put him in the game. I think you can quibble with the plays that were called for Cade Klubnik and the execution of the 3 plays that were called for Cade Klubnik. It was a 3 and out. But to be fair, I do not think Cade played well on those 3 plays. Like, he did not have the drive they had against Georgia Tech's scrubs at the end of that game.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is they're trying to give Cade Klubnik a chance. And he hadn't been able to do it. He wasn't able to do it on Saturday.
Do you think they've given him enough of a sample size? I'm asking. I'm not setting you up, because I'm tempted to agree with you that DJ is the best option they have right now.
I was under the opinion that it would be fairly clear that Cade Klubnik.
Oh, that you would know right away.
Right.
Like in that Trevor way is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
I was under the opinion that it would be quite clear.
Okay.
To DJ's credit, also on Saturday, I thought DJ played pretty well. Yes, Furman, I get it. But I thought DJ played pretty well.
Yeah. Feels like for purposes of this game, we should kick this until post Louisiana Tech, but obviously the point is just to do it now. Richard, what do you think the snaps are going to look like against Louisiana Tech? Because I feel like maybe the audition isn't complete.
I mean, I think, yes. If the audition isn't complete, you have to give him another snap with the ones and see where this goes.
Tech would be a good opportunity for him.
Right. And he would have to show something legitimate. But, like I said, after the Georgia Tech game, they're doing some QB run game stuff. It may just be DJ's offense. And in a similar vein to the LSU situation, you may, on one hand, take the up and downness of DJ because he's got the experience to operate in an offense that is otherwise a mess. Okay. And that offense is otherwise a mess. So do you want to insert a freshman who may not be actually ready?
Yeah.
Or do you stay with the veteran that is at least going to, get you in and out of the game to the best of his ability?
Well, we're going to know
in an offense.
Comparative analysis is going to tell us this weekend whether or not Georgia Tech was creative or if Clemson's O-line is just ass at certain points in certain situations, because they'll have Ole Miss as a sample size this weekend. So, yes, Alex.
The one thing that I think is a significant point in DJ's favor so far, and yes, Furman is basically the reason for most of this, but I think it is also worth noting.
Furman's defensive line kind of pushed Clemson around.
Clemson's offense. We know about Clemson's offensive line not
that's
being
bad for. Okay,
yeah.
So what I just said, then that's bad for
DJ,
my estimation of Georgia Tech's defense. But continue.
DJ is not throwing passes that are put on platters for the opposing defense, and that is a big change from what he was last season, when he had a significant problem with throwing balls that should have been taken away and often were. By Pro Football Focus's charting last year, he had 11 throws that should have wound up with turnovers on them. It's a really large number. Nothing through the first 2 this year. Maybe you are seeing a smarter, refined DJ Uiagalelei. I will cop to this. I watched the Georgia Tech game. I have not watched more than 5 minutes on a highlight run through of the Furman game. I'll be honest about my process. Like, that was not one that made it to the let's go back through the tape for me. Just to put our cards on the table with the audience. Like, we do that with a lot of games coming up to the hurry up.
Yeah.
That one didn't make it.
Shout out to YouTube TV, because now they'll just do the, do you want to watch the highlight? They create their own highlight clip of a 3-hour DVR. It's nice.
The thing that I wonder about is this week might be the last dress rehearsal, the last chance to kind of figure it out, because their next 4 after this week, it's at Wake, it's NC State, it's at Boston College, at Florida State. Boston College is terrible. Boston College may not score a point in the game against Clemson. If they get to 14, that'll be shocking. But Wake, NC State, and possibly even Florida State are not gimmies. I think there's a pretty good chance that Clemson drops one in there if you're just kind of looking at the lay of things. So
Yes.
we will know how they really feel based on how they distribute the snaps, starting with the trip to Winston-Salem
So I feel
on
good.
the 24th.
I feel good about this narrative Richard has presented, and as I transition into mine, it might call mine into question because as someone with extreme national title picture fatigue because of the inertia, my first narrative is going to be, and my second narrative will be directly connected to this, that the Gilded teams are who they are, and that we're in for another year of the almost exact, if not exact same, depending on the order, in the college football playoff. So what I'm talking about is, yes, it's simple but true, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and then, pivoting off of Richard's idea, Clemson question mark, right? Obviously, Notre Dame.
Or Oklahoma.
Right. Again, so these are the parameters I'm setting out before you guys shoot holes in this. Obviously, Notre Dame's out. What are the actual chances that we see a college football playoff first timer? So Oklahoma would not count.
High.
Obviously, they've been in there.
High.
I don't think high, but I do think there are a few candidates.
I've got it at a single digit percentage. So feel free to shoot holes in this. Otherwise, I think you're going to see some variation of teams who have already been to the playoff at least once, but I'm guessing it's going to be the most usual suspects this year.
So tell me if there's any candidate. I think the only three serious candidates to be a first-time playoff team this year, and tell me if I'm being too generous too, is BYU, USC, and Utah.
I think
Utah would be tough.
You got to put in Oklahoma State / Baylor, whoever wins the Big
Probably
12.
not Baylor.
Probably not Baylor.
Other than Oklahoma. Also, Christ, I am not actually. Our posture on USC has been clear about the expectation this season. What I think they're going to be. We are going to get to USC a little bit later. Yada yada yada.
Okay.
You do have to put it in the realm of plausibility.
Yeah.
That USC can do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a top 3 offense in the sport easily. Like,
yes.
There's no, we don't
one
need,
permutation.
Maybe I shouldn't say easily, but it's a top 3 offense in the sport. I think we can already take a victory lap on that being like an instantaneous jump. They're currently 16th in SP plus on offense. That's going to change.
Get higher.
Yeah,
that is going to get higher.
Look at the schedule.
Yeah.
As Bill phases out preseason priors.
Wait, hang on. Are we taking a victory lap? Was it bold or was it original for us to say that USC was going to be good this year? I don't think it was.
It was adults. It was adults leveling with adults and us not putting blinders over our eyes.
Or just what? Just
hemming and hawing.
sitting down Oklahoma like we got to tell them we got to put their dog down or what?
No, the thing that we didn't want to do was like pump the brakes and be like, well, USC was 5-7 last year, and this is actually gonna be it's gonna be a building job. Like it's like okay, yeah, like it's gonna be a building job, but also like grow up. Like
it's not at all.
Like,
I mean, Jesus, he raided the portal. Like,
right. It's like this is not a 5. Like,
what asshole
forget
outside of seriously? What asshole outside of Oklahoma would say? No, I reject this entirely.
I think that there was a non-trivial amount of people who were saying things to the effect
SEC
of
media.
Patience. Just saying patience.
No, it's not. An SEC media. People on the West Coast will tell you, and we will tell you in a second.
Richard,
they're ass on defense.
Richard. True or false? There are people in the SEC media going into this season who said, yeah, there's a possibility you could have 3 SEC teams in the playoff. True or false? Okay. You have
seriously.
You guys have mentioned a permutation here. I want to actually challenge my own theory here. You guys were rattling off a series of teams. What if Baylor wins the Big 12 and that gives the Notre Dame Cincinnati push to Brigham Young?
Well. Yeah, if Baylor wins the Big 12 and BYU doesn't lose the game.
Right.
I don't think this is going to happen. I think BYU is probably going to finish something on the order of 10-2, maybe 11-1.
Sure.
But if BYU gets through their game this weekend, which is against Oregon,
if BYU goes undefeated, they should walk in backwards.
Yes, they should. They have a serious schedule, in my opinion.
It's going to make the Big 12
a Power 5 caliber schedule. And if they go undefeated, they should be treated like Notre Dame is treated when they go undefeated.
Yes.
It's a little early for this, but
all the way up to
the point of the game. That's the point of the game.
All the way up to what they do in the semifinal game.
Oh yeah. It wouldn't be good in that case. But keep in mind, very impressive win over Baylor. They were missing a couple of I think their 2 best receivers in this game. So, and also if you just kind of look at how it lines up, they are currently slated to be SP plus favorites in every game that they've got left, if I go by the valuations right now, except for this Oregon and Notre Dame, which is a toss-up. I don't know. Just keep an eye on it.
We have a minor problem. I think my narrative presentation, although I feel good about it because I'm myopic about the playoff, I've cannibalized our next two, so we can just kind of transition right into them, both Alex and Richard, in terms of what we have next. It kind of all blends together. We didn't even mean to be this seamless.
Well, yeah, I actually want to kind of go back on USC for a second and say that while I'm a big believer here, and I think that things are going to be pretty good in the neighborhood in year one, and I think they're going to play in a New Year's Six bowl this year, their defense is terrible. And if they, in fact, let's just say it, if Lincoln Riley did take this team to the playoff this year, they would get Oklahoma in the way that his Oklahoma teams got Oklahoma a few times.
Now that would be
they
funny.
would give up. They would get, if they played Georgia in the playoff this year, Georgia would score however many points until Kirby started to feel dirty about it and stopped. That's how many points they
There's
give
a
up.
high probability that USC simply just do a helmet swap and they serve the role of like Oklahoma versus LSU in the Peach Bowl.
Yeah, maybe.
And that-
Stanford, I want to be clear with people. Stanford gained 75% of their available yards in non-garbage time snaps against USC. That is more than USC gained against Stanford.
And they were running RPO.
Yes.
I know
by the
that's
way,
not the point of this segment, but like
Stanford could be
God,
back. Who knows?
I don't
wouldn't go that
want to
far.
be.
I think he's
I
just
don't
trying
wanna go-
something.
I don't want to go all the way here on Stanford, but I do want to be quick on Stanford. David Shaw and Stanford deserve credit for pivoting. You want to sit here and say, Stanford, you can't do intellectual brutality, yada, yada, yada anymore. You need to adapt. You need to change. He is trying to do that. 4-3 defense. Wake Forest RPO. David Shaw deserves a lot of credit for that. He just does. Anyway.
All right.
USC's defense is being propped up by turnovers to an Iowa degree.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah. Well, so it was different. It's funny. It's different kind of turnovers that have kind of juiced their stats. Against Rice, they had, I think it was actually 3 pick sixes. I might have said 2 on the hurry up the day after. It was 3 in that game. And then Stanford kept giving them the ball, like basically at the goal line. Just
Stanford had 3 low red zone turnovers.
yeah.
And another fumble that was almost a scoop and score.
So
USC.
hang on. So Alex, your narrative here is that they may be the best team in the Pac-12, but remember that the problems are real and this team is going.
Not May, by the
and
way.
then this team
they
is
are the best team. in the
But
Pac-12.
your actual narrative is yes, they're the best, but they're going to lose several games. I am hesitant solely on the laziness of playing the schedule game to ascribe several games lost to this specific schedule because, again, y'all are just talking me into Lincoln Riley product, just transferring helmets. Much like Oklahoma, you can hide your deficiencies down the stretch of a schedule before you're exposed in the semis. And they have some scrappy games, like where they can just out talent an Oregon State. God bless you, Beavers. I'm so sorry I said that. I'm so sorry. Fresno, another team I love, like that's the caliber of your opponent. And then when you get into what quote unquote league big boy is going to test them in November?
Utah might. Richard says he's sure USC is the best team in the Pac-12. I still think
Utah
that
doesn't match up to USC the same way anymore.
I think there's a chance that I think Utah's defense will give up a ton of points when they play USC, but that it is still possible. I don't think that we should rule out the possibility of
Is Utah going to go
out.
fast?
No, that's not really their thing. It's never
That's
been
what I'm
their
saying.
thing.
So, but what I'm saying,
But-
if you're surrendering an amount of points commiserate to what were the Lincoln Riley brand, you would have to not be Utah in certain instances.
The problem is that Utah's run defense looks very un-Utah-like so far, but it did for the first 2 games of last year too. So it's kind of a buyer
and
beware
one of
thing.
one of the still to this day dumb perceptions of the Lincoln Riley thing is it's born out of the Leachy and Air Raid Big 12 2000s.
No,
like
dude, they'll grind
they
your
can
ass to
run.
dust.
They can run.
Yeah.
They run really well when you let them.
Yeah, Richard, the Lincoln Riley counter series and power series is like, don't your coach nerd friends talk about this stuff like it's like watching Da Vinci Paint, watching Lincoln Riley call
It is fucking
gap runs.
gorgeous. It is fucking gorgeous. Go watch the Stanford play. And I'm not talking about the deep balls to Jordan Addison. I'm not even talking about that. Go watch how USC layers on top of the counter blocking scheme, the counter run game. That is shit. That shit is gorgeous.
Richard, tell me why you love the troops.
Am I back? Am I back on the military-industrial complex this week? Who
After
fucking
fading
knows?
Army? Yeah, you are. You're back.
Just depends on those margins.
Although Army would say it's not the military, so.
Yeah, they would. So would Navy.
What if Air Force is your G5 New Year's 6 team?
Nah. Not loving it.
So my thing is, why aren't they?
BYU.
Because if you're going to sit here and say that BYU is going to 10-2,
BYU isn't eligible for that spot, Steven. They're not in a G5 conference.
But I think Godfrey is conflating, which is what I do too.
Yes.
Which is G5 New Year's 6
Correct.
entrant and best G5 team.
At
I think
large.
we're both
Yes.
conflating.
Yes.
Yes, we're both conflating there. So I think Air Force racing through the Mountain West, a Mountain West that is Boise and not much else.
And Boise may not be much themselves.
If they race through that schedule
This could be a terrible conference this year. The Mountain
and
West.
smoke the other two branches to win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy going away, which it kind of looks like they're going to do at this point in time. I mean, it's who else are you going to pick?
In theory, the answer is if there's a one-loss champion out of the American or the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt has some juice right now
Sun Beast.
to the point that, like, if it's
But I think the Sun Belt's going to beat itself up.
that's the problem is especially the Sun Belt East.
narrative.
Everything I've
done, I'm retired.
Goddamn right.
But-
I'm retired.
Never
it
wrong,
is
just
true.
early, baby.
The Sun Belt East is going to be pretty hard for anyone to come out unscathed from.
Yeah.
And in the West, Louisiana is, you would still figure, kind of the favorite, but in a bit of a state of like, all right, we're still waiting for some regression to come there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know that the American has a one-loss champ this year. I don't know if they do.
Richard, let's back up for a second because I'm just looking. Like, are we saying they're the best team in the Mountain West?
I think they
Yeah,
are the best
quite
team in the Mountain
comfortably.
West.
Quite
I
comfortably.
really think they are.
Quite
Yeah.
comfortably. Okay. Not the problem, but the
It
thing.
ain't Utah State. It ain't San Diego State. And I don't think it's Boise State.
Okay, we'll get to my narrative in a second, which I guess
Might
you
be
could.
Fresno State, though.
Yes, it is. They wouldn't see Fresno in the regular season, though. I guess that it might complicate this a little bit. Is we'll wait. I don't want to jump into my narrative yet. I don't believe that we are going to see consistency in the bad teams in the Mountain West or the good teams. I think, not to Richard's SEC point about the Sun Beast, which I agree that they're good and they're going to beat on each other. I just don't believe in the reliability of anything in this conference this year, so that a Boise we have seen struggle could still beat Air Force. A Utah State we've seen struggle. Well, maybe not Utah State. Hey, let's skip that one. They do have an incredibly advantageous schedule. Incredibly. If you have to play a road game in Wyoming, it's best to do it this weekend, which they are. They don't get Fresno at all. They get Boise at home. However, I just want to add this on. They also have to be the best academy. And the problem with that is there are many years in which the best academy in terms of like metrics and talent is not the Commander-in-Chief's trophy winner because those games get so ugly and reductive.
Yes,
Dude,
but Navy, Stephen, is not going to be able to play with Air Force this year. They're just not going to. I understand.
So you're
what
sleeping
saying,
on an
but
Army
it's not
team.
happening.
It's a neutral site game in Dallas at the Texas
that's what
Ranger
I'm saying.
Stadium.
If
An Army team that has 1-score losses against UTSA and Coastal.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if they're going to lose a game, it's going to be Boise, Army, or San Diego State, and the rest of the schedule, I think they're going to walk through it. And so we should start to consider the possibility of the airplanes being in the New Year Six.
If Richard's narrative is right, Troy Calhoun is going to be mentioned for more jobs than Troy Calhoun has ever been mentioned before. And if you think Hugh Freeze can inception his name into a job search, Troy Calhoun is the OG. Transitioning on, this is piggybacking my first narrative, and we'll close with this. So the playoff, I think, although Richard's now scaring me with Clemson, is going to be the exact same configuration of 5 or 6 teams. But my word, hoo boy, there is no difference between maybe not the first team out of that, but like number 8 and number 20 to 25 is going to be a mush. It's going to be entertaining. It's
But isn't
going
it
to
always?
be well. So, but I really want to hammer this home because I feel like I'm being too vague here now. This was bolstered initially by, hey, Florida beat Utah, BYU beat Baylor. My theory being like you can take 7 through 25, coin flip the outcome no matter what the matchup is. And then on top of that, this parity and wildness that we've seen so far, is it going to carry all season? Yes, there are years like this, but if you almost had, and I know you can't give it, the entire conceit of the 2007 season was that top to bottom, it was madness. And that it was just as uncertain at 1 as it was at 30.
Until Ohio State won the national championship.
Ohio State didn't win the national championship that year.
Or
LSU.
LSU.
A two-loss LSU bolstered by Dave One-Stats Pitt. We have seen certain seasons like this, but I have a feeling that you're going to see more of a mush and uncertainty. And if I was an old school curmudgeon sports writer who was a little bit racist and just very cranky, I might say this is what happens with the transfer portal and NIL. There is a lot of uncertainty in otherwise good programs. And I think you're not going to see any middle class emerge. That true 7 through 12.
But you should Riverside this and talk about how this is the point of an expanded playoff.
I knew that was going to come up. I didn't want to go ahead and walk it out.
Well, I'm just saying, this is the point of an expanded playoff. That's why an expanded playoff's going to be pretty sick because you've got the conference races, but you've got this level of parity for what is effectively wildcard spots. And an expanded wildcard race has its own interest and intrigue.
But wouldn't that work better the year that like Baylor and TCU are on the outside looking in and very deserving? Because what I'm saying is
no, because I don't think
7, 8, 9 are the same as 20, 21, 22.
Yeah, but I we're moving the debate from when you move the debate of who should be in from 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to say anybody can parse those because it was difficult to parse those two teams, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But when you slide that debate further into this crabs in the bucket you're talking about,
mm-hmm.
and you involve more teams into that bucket, eligible into that bucket,
yes,
you get a lot more intrigue and you get a lot more participation. The literal playoff talking point about participation you get. Side note, and we talked about this on the Patreon show earlier, and I was having a conversation about this yesterday with somebody. What the expanded playoff is going to do to the coaching market is also interesting in that you may have something of an NCAA tournament situation where coaches who may not be otherwise deserving win one playoff game and hang or get to the playoff and get to hang their hat on backing into the dance.
Yeah.
Or winning one game in the dance to save skin or bolster status.
Real fast, I want to say this. I didn't actually do this when I suggested the narrative, but now that shout out to Ralph, I pulled up randomly the AP Top 25. 1 through 6 is exactly what it's teams that have already been in the playoff, all the brand names, right? 7 is USC, which we just discussed, which might be New Oklahoma. Sorry. And then you go.
So
8,
Oklahoma might just still be good, but okay.
I'm not taking anything. I would never take anything away from the Sooners. 8 is OSU, Oklahoma State, sorry, and 25 is Oregon. And then as I go, and I'm not gonna rattle the whole list off, but I do feel very confident about this takery after week 2, where I'm like, all right, let's pull any two teams at random and simulate 5 to 6 to 10 games. Michigan State versus Texas, Wake Forest versus Oklahoma State. Like it's mush. Which I don't want to say that like as a pejorative. I'm excited because these games are going to be hard as hell to prognosticate and entertaining, hopefully, to watch. And that's all I really care about is the latter.
I'm into it as well. I think we have a good opportunity here to have a fun college football season. Those are some narratives to consider and to be aware of over the next couple of weeks. Quick break for podcast business. It's the Home Field Apparel Shirt of the Week. We've got some beauties this week, fellas, and we have a promo code that I'm very excited about. Came up with it myself. No big deal. We have these shirts are both pinned on the Split Zone Duo Twitter account, twitter.com/SplitZoneDuo. We have got a home field shirt commemorating Penn State's 1986 national champion team. We also have the 1957 Auburn national champs tee from home field, one with a very pretty Obby the Tiger on it, and the other with just a Penn State helmet on it. Auburn and Penn State, you might have heard, are playing a football game this weekend. There's some anxiety swirling around that game on at least one side. I think there seems to be more on the Auburn side as I just read the internet, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, if you want to go and you have not ordered from home field yet, what are you waiting for? If you use the promo code SZD20, you'll get 20% off your first order. That is opposed to the code Lions and Tigers, which anybody can use to get 15% off either that Penn State shirt or that Auburn shirt. If you're like me, you have no problem being a mercenary, wearing shirts for teams that you did not attend their university, then you might be interested in buying shirts for national titles for teams you don't even root for. I love doing stuff like that. Richard Johnson does not. Richard only wears Florida shirts because he
Alex, how
kind of prudish.
How hard are you busting out the Auburn shirt this week?
Good question. I have not busted it out yet, but as we're going to get to invested interest later, I think Auburn might win that game. But the thing is, you can't predict a game anymore without, without the Twitter accounts coming for you if they lose and trying to ruin your afternoon. So who knows? Maybe I should be careful. One more activity, though, before we do that. There are currently 21 teams in FBS that have not won. They are New Mexico State, Charlotte, and Hawaii, who are 0-3. And then the following at 0-2, Central Michigan, Buffalo, Colorado State, yikes, Ball State, Georgia State, Army, Boston College, UMass, Southern Miss, Hawaii, Navy, Bowling Green, Kent State, West Virginia, and Notre Dame. So some of these situations are obviously bad, and we have talked about them. It's not good right now to be Charlotte or New Mexico State or Hawaii or Navy or Bowling Green, but some of these teams may still be fine for some reason or another. Could play bowls this year, could make progress in other ways. Maybe they've just scheduled hard, or maybe they've just been weirdly sloppy for the first 2 weeks. So what I need from you both is two teams that you are drafting for the rest of 2022 and making the case that their 0-2 start might yet give way to something more uplifting.
I'll go last because I didn't read the instructions and I created a sampler platter of G5 teams. Shocking. So, Richard, go ahead.
I'm going with Georgia State.
Okay. I like it, by the way.
It's a good pick.
It's not surprising that they're 0-2. They played two Power 5 teams.
Right.
South Carolina and North Carolina.
But I'm intrigued, man.
Okay.
Darren Granger's a good quarterback. And I think against Sunbelt competition, they're going to be very interesting and a very tough out. And we know Sean Elliott will have that team playing salty defense. I'm intrigued. I'm enthused. I'm taking them. First pick.
All right.
Yeah, I could still see Georgia State missing a bowl this year, which is kind of abnormal for them now.
To be honest with you, do not.
The thing is, they're going to have to win. I think for them to make a bowl, they're going to have to steal one against a team that is probably better than them. And the two that I'm looking at there are Army in a couple of weeks and James Madison later on. Both of those are road games. And remember last year how Army infuriated Georgia State? Like Georgia State's guys were trying to start fights after plays because they just could not stop Army. I'm just saying, but it's a respectable pick, and Georgia State has tended to be pretty good the last few years.
Alex, did you just have a moment here on your picks? You abandoned it mid pick?
Well, I'm going never mind because you took all of them within.
Right.
You just picked a bunch of teams on the next one.
So tell me why you bailed on the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I was going to take West Virginia, but then I kind of took a deeper dive into their statistical profile for the moment. It's on the one hand, their two losses have been really close. They probably beat Pitt if Neil Brown just tries to get 6 inches. And then if they don't have a calamitous pick six off of a receiver's hands. And, they almost had Kansas. But then I thought about it and it's you almost had Kansas does not necessarily portend anything good for the shape of your season.
It's a big buyout, folks. Don't even hit me in the mentions. It's a big buyout.
They will win this week against Towson, but you look after that. Virginia Tech strikes me as a could go either way kind of thing. And then in the Big 12, I don't see a single one that's like West Virginia's probably going to win this game.
Yeah.
Like I think they're a notable underdog against certainly Texas, certainly Baylor, probably Texas Tech, probably TCU, definitely Iowa State, Oklahoma, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. The Big 12 is kind of deep this year, and West Virginia might be the dregs of the conference, even below Kansas, given that Kansas just beat them in Morgantown in a game where Kansas was the better team. So I am not picking West Virginia. And I'm going to go so far as to say that I don't think Neil Brown is going to survive this. He might survive this football season. Right now, I think it's less than 50% that he's back in that job in 2023. I really think this guy has
Alex,
the potential.
do you know what
to
his
be in trouble.
buyout is?
It's just it's his fourth year on the job. It can't be that big. They give him a big extension.
I want everyone in the mentions to tell Alex what the buyout is. All right, I'm going to do this real fast because we still have a lot of work to do.
Oh my God, they owed him a full Petrino. Goodness gracious, it's like $17 million.
G5
More than a
sampler
Petrino.
platter. You ready?
Wow, West Virginia could be in. Geez, this is not a good situation.
Okay. All right. G5 sampler platter. Kent, this is a MAC division winner last season. They are still capable of doing that this season. They have one more prostitute game left in which they will sell their bodies to
What
Georgia.
a fascinating term for that.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly what it is, unfortunately. And then they have a whole month, an entire month in the state of Ohio. 4 MAC games against 4 other Ohio teams. They need to go 3-1. They still can go 3-1. Alex is reeling on the prostitute game thing. He's going to be worried about that. Aren't you?
Support sex workers.
I'm just no, I absolutely think that is great.
Doesn't sound like you're much of an ally.
I'm just noting the term, but it is.
I can see you wincing.
It's a very morbid way of describing what a guarantee game, but I guess it's not really wrong in terms of your kind of being.
Southern Miss.
Yep.
Southern Miss. Look, it's all about grading on a curve and finding context. They can still match last year's win total. Last year's win total was 3 in Conference USA. They have games against ULM, Texas State, and Northwestern State. Not Northwestern. Northwestern State is a school in Louisiana. And they still have swing games against Troy and Arkansas State. So let's just say they split the swing games. You are on pace for a massive program. This is a program in a massive rebuild. Don't doubt it. All right. And they went to a conference that's much better. So they had a conference change that was a lot harder. And by the way, did you know they're starting a true freshman quarterback? And they turned the ball over 5 times in the overtime loss against Liberty. By the way, boys, do you know what the score was at half against Miami? This team is plucky.
7s,
yeah,
right? Was
this team is plucky. I have faith in them, not in being a bowl team at all this season, but that they have talent and the pieces are assembling. I like Southern Miss down the stretch. So I think in terms of salvaging a season at 0-2, absolutely everything's still in front of them. And they're probably where they expected to be. The last one, obviously, is Army. Look, it's a brutal schedule for a G5, especially an independent one so far, right? Coastal, UTSA. So bully for you for scheduling it. They are way better than Navy. We know that. They have a path to a bowl. I won't rattle off their schedule, but they play teams like Colgate and Villanova. They have to beat Air Force and Dallas. They have to beat Air Force and Dallas. If you're talking about salvaging a season, that's a big, big, big game to them. Also, hypothetically, Richard, what if we enter Army Navy or any of the armed forces games, and what if there is a change coming in Annapolis, and how would that affect the players, and how would that change the stakes of those games? And then P.S. I just want to take this spot to because Alex mentioned them earlier. I was completely wrong about Jay Norvell getting a jump start at Colorado State. It is not a jump start. They jumped straight into a pit. It's going to be a while. Sorry.
I think that Colorado State is doing the very, very difficult thing that is pivoting that puppy from what it was to Air Raid or Air Raid Light. That takes time. That is hard. What if that Colorado State team, what if we only take Colorado State in November? What if we only judge them on what they look like?
That would be fine.
Not a lot of teams get this treatment from Split Zone Duo LLC, but
I'm surprised. I like that it's coming from you. Okay. All right.
A couple may be able to get these types of kids gloves. What if we throw out the 8 games before November and check in on Colorado State? November 1st.
My only pushback to this is in what were the expectations in Fort Collins because they've been so long starved for relevance in the G5.
Dude, they are the worst.
They suck.
I think they're the worst team in college football right now. Alex, who do you think is worse than Colorado State? There's not more than 5 teams worse than them.
Oh, I've gotten some flack for this. I think Charlotte is an honest contender for the worst team in FBS this year.
Yeah.
I think that probably the answer is New Mexico State is probably the worst this season.
Okay.
But it's not great for Charlotte that they're in that discussion either. None of it's great. None of it's really what you want. Can never sleep on UConn or UMass in these conversations.
Yeah, you can never sleep on UConn and UMass. He said it.
God, this show's on brand this week.
FBS is very big. This is what's tough about having a 131 team top division. It's going to be bad. There's going to be bad. And that's just how it is. Like there's not enough good football players in this country for 131 teams to be anything close to respectable. Yeah. And it's just, and like don't get me wrong, like even the players on like a New Mexico State are top 1 or 2 percentile athletes in the world. They're great, but it's just tough. I'm going to take Central Michigan here. I think that Central Michigan probably still finds its way into a bowl game under Jim McElwain. They, in week 1, they, overmatched themselves against Oklahoma State. Tough for them and very encouraging for South Alabama. South Alabama went north and won that game by 2 touchdowns. This was a tasting menu game for us last week.
They spanked them.
They spanked them. I mean, they beat them pretty thoroughly in that game. I think that in the MAC, there are always wins to find. Central Michigan still has to play Penn State, and they're going to lose that game. And they have an FCS game this week, so they'll be against Bucknell. I think they'll be 1-3 going into the MAC. Even assuming that they do not beat Toledo, I think they can find 5 wins out of the rest of the MAC. The only other really good team on that schedule is Northern Illinois. So I think Central Michigan will find its way. Something to be concerned about there, though, because this really was a good and fun offense last year. I think they won the Sun Bowl against Washington State. They won a P5 bowl game that was kind of created via the COVID situation last December.
That was not a P5 bowl game.
It counts, Richard.
They were thrown together.
Lou Nichols, who was the leading rusher in the country last year, has toted the rock this year for 2.2 yards per carry across 2 games. He is at 41 carries for 92 yards. That is suggestive of the run blocking situation at Central Michigan being bad. And you would expect it to be bad against like Oklahoma State, but they scored points in that game. I don't know why it is that they have one of the worst running games in the country through 2 weeks with Lou Nichols at running back, but it's a problem. It's a thing to notice. However, this is a big week for Central Michigan because they now have an NFL starting quarterback. Cooper Rush.
What?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Go Cowboys.
Surprise.
Yep. Deep pull. Also, I want to quickly. None of us drafted Notre Dame. Richard, we briefly talked about maybe it's time for a bit of a reset of what we think of Notre Dame for the opening stretch of the Marcus Freeman era. Does anyone look at Notre Dame the rest of this season with what is still a Notre Dame schedule, which means plenty of losses on it if they don't play well?
Okay.
Can anyone find a reason for any kind of optimism that they will get something positive out of this year in South Bend?
Not by standards.
Well, Buckner's hurt now, by the way.
Yeah, not by their standards. No, this is things are about to get very uncomfortable, and how he manages that is going to test him over time. We will exit. I'm confident in saying we'll exit this season with hardcore Notre Dame faithful, frustrated and concerned because it's a short leash. I mean, that's fine. It's part of the job.
I hate it for him. I hate it for him. I really do. I really hate it for him. Vested Interest brought to you by BetUS. Sponsor of the show this year. Promo code SCD at betus.com will get you a deposit match of up to 200%. We like to use Vested Interest as an entry point to talk about some games, whether a little action is your thing or not. Obviously, it is mine. But play responsibly, have fun, and if you're like me, use it as a way to find teams to love and hate. Enjoy yourself. Thanks a ton to BetUS for being with us this season. Last week, all of us took UTSA -2 against Army. That's 3-0 for us. Godfrey took Texas.
Not 3-0. The public's 2-0. But we've all taken, Godfrey and I are 3-1. And Richard, you're a mere 2-2.
Sorry, I misphrased that. 3-0 on that pick.
Yes.
3-0 on that pick.
Yes.
Godfrey took Texas covering against Alabama in the way that Kirk Herbstreit takes one team at the end when all the logos go up when they pick games.
No,
Herbstreit will often intentionally take a team.
Don't fade me being right because I made the correct pick.
Stephen Godfrey and Kirk Herbstreit.
You two chirped about how I was an idiot, and I was right with by the end of the first quarter. I was right.
Stephen Godfrey and Kirk Herbstreit, who are often in agreement on many things.
Yeah. So
Alex and I missed that pick, obviously, taking the Alabama Crimson Tide. So the public is 2-0. Alex and Godfrey 3-1. I'm 2-2. It is still all to play for. It's still all to play for.
This week, we are starting with BYU plus 3.5 at Oregon. Everyone here, including the voting public on Twitter, is on BYU, so we can just get that out of the way.
Two of us are considering the money line.
Yeah. So
three of us might be.
You're right.
Like,
Richard in his notes just wrote soft.
I think there's a chance that we find out in this game. There's just a chance, and I'm not saying it's like foregone. We might find out in this game that Oregon has problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Hi, Justice.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how confident I feel about that. I mean, I just wasn't that high on Oregon to begin with, maybe, but I believe more in BYU than I do believe less in Oregon. I want that stated for a fact. So I would not be shocked if Oregon pulled an upset here. I don't think that they're as far apart as you guys do, but I am taking BYU.
But the Oregon's favored in the game. It's not an upset.
Well, they're
Oregon's
idiots.
favored.
I mean, well, come on.
they're at home and they're favored. Yes. Although the spread implies that if this game were in Provo, that BYU would be the favorite.
Okay, hurry up.
They're basically a toss up.
I have something. I want Alex. Let's just go. Come on. Do the next one now.
We're not going to analyze this game further. We're just saying.
No, we're not.
No.
All right. I'm just saying. I think
Don't hedge, Alex. Get to what you did.
I'm not hedging. I'm just saying. I think BYU's defense. If Georgia's defense did one thing,
yep, totally.
You get to throw that out.
Yep,
if
absolutely.
BYU's does it to you,
question surrounding Dan Lanning. Come on.
Then Oregon may just no longer be able to do explosive offense.
Tell the class what you put on your paper.
All right, next game. Penn State -3 at Auburn. Give me Auburn on the money line in this game.
Oh my god!
Give me Auburn on the money line.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So I don't think Brian Harsin is going to make it.
Can you read this paragraph in a Yinzer accent?
But I don't think the funeral is going to be this weekend. They are at a disadvantage at quarterback. Sean Clifford is certainly better than TJ Finley, but I'm not a huge Sean Clifford believer. I got into a fight with some Penn State fans on Twitter about that this week, but I'm not.
Shocking.
I think their most talented quarterback is their backup, Drew Aller. I think that Auburn is bad. I did watch them never really dominate or put away San Jose State a week ago. I absolutely saw that. I give Auburn one chaos Auburn in a positive direction moment per year. I think this is going to be that one for this year. I don't just base that on kind of Auburn magic. I think Penn State's run blocking offensive line is not very good. Auburn has plenty of issues, but they still have Derek Hall. They still have SEC men on their defensive line. I think Penn State's tackling against Purdue was very poor. I think that for all of Auburn's problems, they've got a number of skill players who are very hard to bring down. I think Tank Bigsby and or Jarquez Hunter could have a couple of like very slippery runs in this game that really frustrate Penn State. Javarius Johnson is not an easy man to stick with and put on the ground. I think Auburn's playing at home, and Jordan Hare is not an easy place to win.
Okay, no, I don't
think
want to cut
Auburn's
you
going to
off.
win the game.
Okay,
I just think Auburn's going to win the game.
I would take Penn State at 10.
I don't know about that.
By the way, you're completely right about Chaos Auburn, but it comes when an interim head coach beats a Mississippi State team who in turn beat LSU.
Let's say this.
That's Chaos Auburn.
Brian Harsin is an interim head coach, Stephen. He's an interim head coach. He has as much chance of being the head coach at Auburn next year as the interim who replaces him in a couple of weeks is going to have.
I see what you did there. It was very clever.
No, seriously, like the chips are down. And also like Penn State like, yeah, Auburn's been bad the last couple of years.
You fucking.
Are we just gonna excuse that Penn State was a 7-5 team last year?
This hard. I've never seen you yins this hard.
Are you allowed to do this as a Pitt fan?
You know, it's funny because when I like floated this idea on Twitter that I thought Auburn might win this game, Penn State fans were doing the whole Alex, you're an SEC homer. Penn State plays in difficult environments all the time. You know, they go to Camp Randall, they go to the Big House, they go to the Shoe. I'm like, yeah, you're right. My real agenda would be that I'm a Pitt fan, but I'm telling you, I'm calling it like I'm seeing it.
Do you know how many Auburn
Penn State
fans?
went 7-5 last year.
They're
not that good.
Do you know how many Auburn alumni and fans are going to be in Jordan just sort of arms folded, cheering quietly for Penn State to end this godforsaken chapter?
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think you'd rather win. Like, I think even the Auburn people who we know who are most devout in wanting this.
Alex, you
I also would
you
note
doubt
for
the
the
core of
record-
Auburn insanity.
I also would note for the record, Auburn winning this game does not change a ton.
No.
Unless
it
they
doesn't.
do it by
As
some
I said,
insane margin.
The
which I don't
funeral
think
is
they're gonna do.
coming. He's gonna get fired. Like, we've been talking about this for months. He never had
for a year.
he never had the support of the top people there. The athletic director who hired him was gonna get fired or pushed out, and he did. He's gone. Like, they're already in like phase 3 or 4 of this plan. It's not going. He's not going to be here next year unless something shocking happens.
I posed this question on the Single Wing, and I would repeat it here. It seemed like and I watched more of the San Jose State game than anyone should legally be permitted to.
Same.
But it seems like at times McIntyre knew what was coming, or they were ready based off of Boise film, which I guess is fine. But then also they were able to answer and match some of it with San Jose State personnel against an SEC team.
Auburn can run the ball.
Okay, cool.
All I'm
Sean
saying.
Clifford is not the
Penn
best
State
quarterback on Penn
has
State's
had a
team, and it
very
might
iffy
not
rush
matter.
defense.
It might
He's
not
definitely
matter.
not the most talented. He's definitely not the most talented. He might still be the best, but he's not the most talented. The backup can throw a better ball.
I'm taking Penn State in this game, by the way.
Yeah. You know why? Sanity.
You know what? I can't wait for my victory lap here. I can't wait.
Spicy
I can't
Kirshner.
wait. I just think
go to BetUS.com.
Richard, get us out. Get us out,
That's
Richard.
BetUS.com to join now and get 200% in bonuses with promo code SCD. Nobody in the industry gives better discounts. That is BetUS.com. Code SCD.
Tasting
200%
menu.
in bonuses.
Tasting menu time, boys. This
Tasting
is
menu.
where the
Friday
sickos
night.
shine.
Dude, Florida State is apparently going to play on every fucking day of the week. Friday night, Florida State, 6:30 Central Time.
Wow, they are doing the whole
Who
box
put this
set.
on here? Wait, who put this on here? That's gross. Who did this?
No, I put it on here.
Gross.
You know,
Knowles and cards.
Gross.
I
What do we got?
think, I think that you're being too flippant about this, Stephen.
About Louisville or about FSU?
About actually
About Auburn?
Louisville, I'm furious. Florida State too. Florida State has a decent. I think that it is likelier than not that they make progress this year and that they return to a bowl. I'm curious about Louisville because I want to know if they're closer to the team that got run out of the Carrier Dome by Syracuse in week 1, or if they're closer to the team that just held UCF to, I think, a 14-point outing in Orlando.
11 a.m. Saturday on Fox, Oklahoma, Nebraska. The rivalry renewed. Mickey Joseph, you're on the clock, buddy. Keep it close.
This is a big game, and
11-point spread, by the way.
I just think it's
Keep
cool
it
to
close.
appreciate, even in these circumstances, that Oklahoma
Yes.
and Nebraska are playing.
Yes.
Because they don't do it as much as they used to.
11 a.m. God's time on ESPN. The Deuce. Purdue at Syracuse. I put this on here because I said, fine, I'll watch this. Here's what I mean by this. I just need to investigate this claim that keeps floating in the ether that Syracuse is good. We either need to stamp this out or put more members of the team on this problem. That's it.
Just saying, if Syracuse wins this game, they're going to be 5-0 in a couple weeks. And they're in fact going to be 5-0 going to NC State in week 7.
I don't have
Just
anything. Yeah, no, I have nothing glib or curt or dismissive, shocking, but we have to investigate the matter. 11 a.m. on ESPN. One of the just low key nastiest freaking rivalries in the sport. Georgia and South Carolina. This thing is just never not disgusting.
You will note that the University of South Carolina has not scored, I believe it's more than 21 points against a Kirby Smart Georgia team.
Neat.
So that he's fixed that flaw. Because remember, there was the time when Georgia just like couldn't fucking beat Carolina. They were dealing with them every year.
Yep.
We made the statement for the record on Sunday about where we land as far as South Carolina is concerned.
Yep.
and the train that we are off of.
That's
But-
fine. I'm not pushing you on that one.
Right. I'm not predicting a South Carolina victory here. What I am just interested to see is how Georgia's secondary is. I don't even want to use the word tested, but like, I'd like to see them play.
Anyone?
Like the interception.
Is anyone going to sweat?
Like the interception against Oregon was fun. That was a great play. Like, I'd like to see them be in the position to make some plays.
Yeah.
Which is not to say they can or won't. It's that I want to see the opportunity.
Right.
And we haven't really seen the opportunity in the last 2 years. And I think there is a quarterback of South Carolina that can at least give them the opportunity to make plays.
1 p.m. on the Pacific 12 network that no one gets, so I'll just have to watch it in a Score app or a pirated feed. South Al goes to UCLA. I put this on here because Sun Beast demands more blood.
UCLA has now played Alabama. Did they play Alabama State last weekend?
They did.
And
UCLA
they played
has
Bowling
Alabama
Green before
State.
that.
Yep. And they made
Alabama State and South Alabama. That's back-to-back Alabamas.
Kids, don't do what I'm about to at home because it's bad logic. But transitive logic tells us that a UCLA that let a Bowling Green team hung around, Bowling Green lost at home to Eastern Kentucky. South Al, Sun Beast demand blood. That's all I have to say.
By the way, UCLA's first 4 this year. So there's those 2 they played. There's South Alabama and there's Colorado. So they're
Oosh.
probably going to be 4-0. And
I'm picking South Al, baby. That's why
I can tell that you are. I can tell that you are, but I still think that probably UCLA is going to win. We'll just see.
2 p.m.
We'll just see.
2 p.m. I also put this on here. ESPN Plus. Tulane at K-State. Much kind of a more. I'm investigating Syracuse. I'm just happy to tune into this one. K-State, America's last option team. They're really fun.
What are you talking
Tulane
about?
hasn't played anybody, but
Tulane hasn't played anybody. K-State beat the fucking brakes off Missouri, doing like all kinds of K-State things. I'm very excited to actually tune in and watch this game. 2:30. Oh, it's my alma mater. Whatever. 2:30 on ABC. Ole Miss at Georgia Tech. Okay, Alex, I think you mentioned in the notes that this is a must winner. I mean, I don't even know if we can. I don't even know if we can gauge these things anymore.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
What I said was that if there is going to be any chance of the overarching narrative of Jeff Collins' time at Georgia Tech changing and being something different than a foregone failure heading towards Firedsville, then this is the best chance.
Yeah.
Because other than that, like, there's not a lot of potential on the schedule for what you would call a big win. And so your only other path would be like, can you magically find your way to 6 wins or something like that and go and play in a bowl, which I don't really think is going to happen. So like the best you can hope for is, you maybe beat maybe they beat Miami or maybe they win at North Carolina, or a game like this. I think it's an opportunity.
If you're not following Ole Miss week to week, and I mean, it's okay. Altmaier and Dart are basically doing what Michigan's quarterbacks were doing these first 2 weeks. It just didn't get any of the attention that Michigan did. They did the exact same thing. Like, one guy's going to start here, one guy's going to start here. I do think it's weird. I think they started Altmaier against an FCS team. So I don't know how you comp that, but whatever.
Steven, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So last year, Luke Altmaier, I think he was playing in a game. It might have been the Bottles game at Tennessee when there was like mustard thrown on the field. And he came in at quarterback, and it said that his major was freshman studies, which I just love because, like, wouldn't that be a great major? You just like study the psychology of college freshmen. Do they have that at Ole Miss? Is that what they call it? So because they call it gen ed at most places, but I guess they just call it freshman studies.
I would assume it was an error. This is something I'll actually do the work and track down at the alma mater. Now we do. I don't know if this happens at every SEC school or just every big public school. As a freshman, you have to take something called like an X amount of hours of university studies, where it's like, this is the history of our university. And like, also here's where like the infirmary is and here's where you get a Z-Pack. Like, this was a course that they made us all take. I think it was like 4 hours. I don't remember, but I have no idea. I'll look into it for you, Alex. So maybe Ole Miss has some quarterback messiness, but probably not. C'est la vie, Georgia Tech. 2:30 on Stadium. I have filled this with my crap. Georgia Southern at UAB. Let's fucking go, because these birds can fly. I watched Georgia Southern beat Florida years ago in a bad season. I am not entirely impressed by beating a sort of emotionally defeated Nebraska team. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I will believe in Georgia Southern and in a first-year turnaround and in a sort of a miraculous switch by Clay Helton, which, by the way, he and Mike Bond having this like pen pal love affair, I think is hilarious. Like USC and
The
Georgia,
USC athletic
like
director.
USC and Clay Helton are having the best divorce since like Sonny Dykes and Cal, where it's just like everybody feels better at the end. But if you beat UAB at UAB after the emotion, like you're a good program when you leave all of the Nebraska hype, a week's worth of media barrage in Statesboro, and then you go in and you beat a good UAB team. So that's what I'm looking for.
To Clay Helton's credit, I think he deserves a lot of credit for this. I do think Clay Helton is the type of person who knows how to manage a program, or at least has been there.
Yeah.
When a program has a big win and becomes way too big for its britches.
Yeah. And again, it's starting to look like the AD there, Jared Benko, made a really, really smart decision. And our history and our expectation of what that program should look like is ultimately secondary to being good and winning football games.
And I am not saying Georgia Southern is too big for its britches. I am saying when egos get inflated by media coverage,
correct,
shit can happen with 18 to 22 year olds.
UAB is in a fantastic position to win this game. 3:00 ESPNU. I did it again. Kansas at Houston. This is the same energy as Purdue Syracuse, where I now am going to tune in to watch Kansas in an investigative capacity. So
that's competent Kansas to you.
And then also Houston, like, they've gone to OT twice. Let's start asking some harder questions there. Like, I'm curious, is this a Doug Belk thing? Like, is this Dana? Like what's going on with our personnel? It was fine when they came all the way back, which they did again in this game too. They came all the way back in UTSA and then won at the end in a shootout. Like, it just bit them in the ass last week. 5 p.m. on ESPN. Mississippi State at LSU. This is my road trip. And I think we've already had people road trip to Baton Rouge. This is my Nokian Tires road trip, but specifically the road trip I'm talking about is going from North Mississippi to Baton Rouge. It's a drive that even from Starkville or Oxford is about 5 hours. It has wonderful traffic snarls throughout the amazing interstate system of America. There's still some post-Katrina things going on in the state of Louisiana, but it's a fun drive once you get south of Jackson. That can be said about a lot of things in life. This game too, if you want to go in and just take a road trip to Baton Rouge, I always advise going as Richard, you've done this. Alex, you've done it. Well, I think you guys did it for a Florida game, so it doesn't apply. Go to Baton Rouge when it's an SEC game that you don't have a dog, like you don't have a dog in the hunt for, because you get all the hospitality, you get all the energy of this game. By the way, can we just talk about the game for a second? Although I really do advise everyone takes a road trip on their Nokian Tires to Baton Rouge. The game is just filled with wonderful questions. I'm very interested in the actual outcome.
SMU Maryland 6:30 FS1. That is my road trip, not Alex's. Could probably do it in what, 4 hours? How long would it take you to get to New York City?
You could get to College Park in about 3:45 probably from New York City. Yeah.
Really?
As Alex's note states, there will be points in this game. Let me tell you.
What do we think about like SMU is pretty functional transitioning out of Dykes. Like
I think
Brett's
SMU
doing all
is,
right, man.
I think SMU is at least 50-50 to win this thing. The Maryland
When's
is
the
favored.
Skillet game? Skillet game next week?
Yes, the Skillet game is the week after. SMU is so far looking good, and I'll throw out the Lamar FCS game last week, but they did North Texas the exact same way that they did North Texas when Dykes was the coach there. SMU owns North Texas right now. Like that, there is not a more lopsided intra-city, intra-media market, whatever you would say Denton is, rivalry right now than SMU North Texas. SMU drums them.
Alex, I just want to clarify and set you up here. Is your road trip for this next game from one school to the other? Because that would be a hike.
Well, I mean, hypothetical, obviously, because we cannot actually drive cross country every week. But I think that
I can't with that attitude.
I think that driving from Michigan State to Washington would be a great trip this week. I'm into this game. I think that it would be, I am at least entertaining the possibility, especially with Michael Penix Jr. And Kalen DeBoer looking like a nice tandem, that Washington could bounce back pretty quickly. Because I don't think that their problems under Jimmy Lake were entirely structural.
Yes,
Obviously, all we've seen so far is Kent State and Portland State.
As wrong as I was about Colorado State, I feel completely validated on buying hard on Washington early this season. They have looked the part. This is also a trip I've always wanted to take. Alex, I've been to the stadium, but not for a football game. Back in the pro wrestling days, we were running something in Seattle, and I ran over to the campus just to take a look. I think UW's really cool, and this would be an awesome place to see a game. That was before the renovation.
Yeah, I've never seen a game there. I've been to Seattle once, but never seen a game there. I think it would be a good time. So that's where I would go on my Nokians this week. 7 o'clock on Longhorn Network.
Yeah, who
if you
put
get
that?
it.
Yeah, who put this on there? UTS, it's Texas. Okay, are we selling this as a watchable thing, or is this just what capacity are we consuming
it's
this?
not
Game, we
watchable
got a
because
backup
you
quarterback.
probably don't get the channel. But I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't.
yeah, so Texas should win this game, and they have a backup quarterback who is it. Hudson Card appears to be a really, really big drop off from Quinn Ewers. If the numbers last week were any indication, I don't think it's on the level that was a serious quarterback competition in the fall.
After last week, can we not even do tongue in cheek future Texas head could Jeff Traylor?
We always could. We always could.
All right, cool.
But
cool.
I think
feel good.
UTSA, seeing how UTSA fares in this game, will be interesting. UTSA is always interested in climbing the social ladder in the state of Texas. They almost beat Houston. They didn't. Texas is better than Houston, but it wouldn't shock me if UTSA gave them a game for a while. And obviously it would be fun if they could really scare them. So definitely one worth monitoring if you get the channel. And even if you don't,
Most Texas shit of all time would be getting smoked.
Absolutely. APN, ESPN, Miami at Texas A&M. What if I was wrong about no new playoff teams and it's Miami that sneaks in?
We just don't know yet about Miami
I do
because
not.
they.
I hear the
Don't
Florida
read
fan
that.
failing to form words.
What are you saying? What are you saying,
Fuck
Richard?
off.
Failing to even form a sentence. just a guttural disgust.
Richard, are you saying?
No, I think
you've got a
A&M's.
feeling?
I don't think A&M's going to win this game just based on last week.
No.
It was more the playoff.
Quick aside, I had a
The
really,
playoff
really
week,
shitty Miami fan jump in the Minchies. I think it was in the SZD Instagram mentions. And I learned something that Richard, Spencer Hall, Ryan Nanny, all of our Florida consortium have been telling me for years, that the rest of us just like watch the U documentary and think Miami's cool and the smoke and all this. And then you realize like that fan base is a lot to fucking deal with. And I've never encountered them. So
Every fan base has them, but the only fan base where someone ever attempted to find my address and told me they were doing so was Miami.
Oh,
in
really?
Like 2017.
See, the only experience I've ever had with
about that life.
The only
They are
experience
about that life.
as a reporter that I've ever had is attending a Miami game for 8 hours, standing next to and walking around with Uncle Luke. So it was basically like going to Windsor with the king, queen, whatever, RIP. So, I mean, like, it was fantastic for me. All right, Nightcaps. Boy, I'm DVRing the F out of this. There's no way my old ass is going to make it through these two, especially the latter here. 9:30 on Fox, Fresno State at USC, and then 10 o'clock on FS1. This is a somnambular challenge to anyone over the age of 30. Stay awake for NDSU at Arizona as not a fan of either school and prove it. Unless you have like a crying baby or something.
I'll probably be keeping eyes on it because I'm up at that time
You
doing
don't
the hurry
sleep.
up prep.
You do not
No,
sleep.
I do. I sleep plenty. Just on Saturdays, I go to bed late because we're prepping. Richard preps the hurry up early in the morning. I prep it late at night.
Fresno State at USC.
That's our difference.
Do we have anything in terms of watchability there? I think it'll be fun, but I love a scrappy Fresno, but I do believe in Oklahoma, California.
Yeah, I think Fresno could.
Can we start calling them the Grapes of
points.
Wrath? We'll just
I
call them
think
Grapes of Wrath.
Fresno should score at least into the 20s, maybe into the 30s in this game, and so that's at least something. Like I think they could keep this game to a touchdown, maybe two. I do.
Boys, let's
I
get
don't think
out of
they're gonna
here.
win.
Let's get out of here. Alex, this is your last chance to atone for picking Auburn.
No, I'm in too deep.
War Eagle.